Welcome to the Mom Owned and Operated podcast, the podcast about moms and for moms, where we have candid conversations about running a business, raising a family, and remembering ourselves. I'm your host, Rita Suzanne, a single mom of four, digital strategist, and provider of no-nonsense business strategies and tactics. This is Mom Owned and Operated. I'm Rita Suzanne, and today I have my guest Shanika on with me. Shanika, I'm so excited to chat with you. Please tell everyone all about you, your business, and your family.
Absolutely. I'm excited to be here too, number one. But yes, like Rita was saying, my name is Shanika Grant. I always let people know that I'm God's daughter. That way it's like I'm not attached to the things that I do, but more so just working in the purpose that he's called me to do. So number one, I am his daughter. I am the wife of the most amazing husband. We've been married 12 years, Jacoby, and we have two beautiful daughters, Braylon Joy and Brianna Grace, and 11 and almost 7. So it's exciting times around here. I do have a business as owning a private practice. I'm a licensed clinician and licensed in the state of South Carolina and Utah. It is always a journey being in this field. And I do some coaching as well. And newly authored, well, not as new anymore. My first published journal workbook came out with that last year. It's called Journaling with Faith Formations, as well as this podcast that I have as well. Insecure Faith Meets Joy and Freedom. Started that actually last month. And so things are moving, navigating all the things, and just enjoying the journey as I do so.
Love it. So what does a clinician do?
So, clinician, I'm a counselor, therapist, they very interchangeable. So I work with women specifically that are dealing with like transitions, stress, anxiety, all those types of things. And I just take this journey with them, not necessarily to be the expert of solving their problems, but to give them a different way to look at and process what they're experiencing and helping them to think outside of what they may have thought that obviously may have not been working for them, and getting them to shift and change their perspective in things. So it's been quite a journey. I've enjoyed it. Been in the field of mental health for over 10 years, but as a counselor, 3 years.
Yeah, I love that. And then I love the book that you came out with, and I we were talking about it briefly before, and how I was saying the title, Faith Formations, I think is just a cute play on words. And tell us a little bit more about that.
Absolutely. So journaling with faith formations came from an idea that I was just sitting on the couch. Typically, I'll sit on the couch at night in the evening, kind of like a downtime thing for my husband and I. We'll just chill out in his man cave. And some days, if he's like watching a sports thing, and I'm like, yeah, I don't really, want to hear it, I'll Google or just kind of sit in my thoughts or whatever the case is. And so one day I was sitting there, heard the word faith formations kind of pop in my head, and I'm like, faith formations, huh? So I remember mentioning it to my husband, and he was like, okay, what's that? And I'm like, oh no, just something God dropped in my spirit. I don't know. So I sat with it, didn't really move on it because I didn't know how he wanted me to move with that. It was something that was thought of, like I said, in 2021, and it didn't come back around until 2023. I just remember saving it in my phone, took a screenshot. I said, I'm going to screenshot it because I know that it's something and I'll just keep it. And so I still have that day of the 21st of me just, 2021 of me just saving that. And it was kind of like I went through a journey of getting even in more of a relationship with God, of hearing what he says about me and understanding that nothing that I am doing as far as the roles that I'm showing up in or the things that I'm doing for people, that is not what, makes me who I am or makes me be the success or that I'm worthy because I'm doing these things, but simply because I'm his daughter. And so me living in that mindset and thriving in that space, it was where he took me on the journey to write this, to help other women to be able to know that we are not what we do for people and, all of these things. And even when we go through hard moments and hard times, like it does not or even the mistakes that we make, like that doesn't define us. And so it was just kind of a beautiful space to write through this and just have other people to know that just because we have these moments, just because we go through the hard times, it does not mean that we're anything less than what God already calls us. And he calls us his daughters or his sons. He calls us worthy. He loves us unconditionally. Like we love our kiddos unconditionally. If you are his child, he loves you unconditionally. And so I felt like he wanted me to just be another one of those people to spread that message to so many people that need it in certain seasons and times of their lives where they may forget that at times. So just that process was just beautiful. And as I wrote it, like he refined me and renewed my mind in doing that too.
Yeah. So does it include affirmations that are faith-based, or how does it work?
So we all know what affirmations are. And it's just like those words, they're encouraging words that we use to kind of help us navigate through the hard moments and all of these different types of things. And so what faith formation came from was the idea that I know that I'm able to use these positive affirmations to say to myself. But what God was reminding me of was that if he said it about us, we know it's true. And so being able to use his word and use, some of the things that we use now, but being able to couple that with literal scriptures from the Bible to put that together to say these types of things. So for one of my favorite ones is I will linger in God's love, right? And so that's the faith formation to remind you that no matter what you're going through, like you can literally sit in, and be in love with God and knowing that he's going to carry you through that. And so that faith formation is there to remind you of that. And then it also provides a scripture that's related specifically to that faith formation. And then we have some reflection questions on there, and just like what I call like a posture reminder to remind you that this is what it looks like when you linger in God's love. This is how he's going to be with you. This is how he's going to walk with you and things like that. So it's sectioned off into different things that we deal with. So a few of them are sectioned into like daily life, things that, just kind of happen on a daily basis, but it also talks about grief. It talks about fear and doubt and family structure and, life, and faith formations relating to that. And also scriptures, as I said, relating to that too. And it has a really great, a reflection space for you to kind of write down some of those reflection questions that I ask, and some good journaling space too on the side of that.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Is it kind of like a workbook of sorts with the lessons with it? Because those are my favorite types, where you can actually have the accompanying workbook or something where you can write into it.
Yes, it absolutely does. So it gives you that extra space to be able to write that. And what I felt was really unique that I was trying to figure out at first. I'm like, should I put it by days? Like day 1, you're doing this, day 2. And God, he basically told me not to do it that way, because for me, when I think about journaling and going through, those books and reflection questions and things like that, sometimes if I get in it and I'm like, oh snap, I missed a day, I feel like I got to catch up with it. And so this was more of where it's not a thing that I wanted you to rush through. Like I wanted you to take your time and get what you needed to get, and not feel like, oh man, I'm behind on this day. What am I going to do? I got to catch up and do like 3 in a row to be back on track. It's not that. Because one, I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I do all these things. I know life gets busy. And so the idea behind it is, it's okay. Like take your time, but don't get stuck where you don't go back to it. Go back, pick it up as often as you can, squeeze it in that time, make it, intentional when you do it. And so by not putting the dates on it, for me, it was just like helpful to me to not get stuck in trying to make sure I check off another task. But it's something that I know when I'm in it, that I'm taking my time and I'm getting what I need from it.
Yeah, so they can work at their own pace versus feeling that restrictive, like it's like, oh shoot, I know, I feel like that too, because sometimes you feel, and then you feel bad, and then sometimes people will just quit because they feel like they're behind, and you don't want them to quit. So I get that. So tell us a little bit more about your podcast. I love talking to people who have their own podcasts, because I'm intrigued about what it's all about. What's the structure like? Tell us more.
Absolutely. So Insecure Faith Meets Joy and Freedom, it again is wrapped in a space of me getting through and walking through different journeys. And it's like, once I'm going through this, it's like, why hold off on the good stuff? Invite other people in to get free too. And so that was what it was for me. I got that, from even my own pastor and mentor, where it's like, the saying is free people, free people. So if you got something good, why are you holding on to it? Help somebody else out. And so Insecure Faith Meets Joy and Freedom came through that. It was a space where I knew that I was doing all these new things and I wasn't always sure what it would look like, how to navigate through it. And, sometimes insecure moments and thoughts would come up, right? And I had to go beyond it. I had to kind of like push myself in understanding that even though I'm going through these hard moments and feeling like imposter syndrome might hit, or feeling like, are people really going to listen? Is this really a thing I should do? All of that. And what was so good for me and therapeutic was knowing that, okay, God, what do you say? And I felt like the push to do it. And so it was like, okay, I'm going to do this. So it started in a space of overcoming insecurity. And it was like, okay, so it kind of changes to know that even though I may have insecure moments, even though I may deal with doubt and fear of going into something new or whatever the case is, I still have the faith that if I'm supposed to be in this space, it's going to work. And so in having that faith, it also brought about that joy that the Lord gives and the freedom to be able to make the choice to choose to say yes every time, even when it don't feel good all the time. And so literally Insecure Faith Meets Joy and Freedom came about, and it's a space and a platform that I love to have women of all different walks of life to be a part, to share their journey, share their experience, share their stories, to let them know and to encourage the audience that there's so much more that you have to offer, so much more that you have to give. And, by holding on to that, you never know who needs that to get their push to get what they need to get going in the space that they're supposed to dominate and show up in. So it's been really fruitful. I've been excited just to do my solo ones, and then also just interviewing people to just, learn from them. And it could be something that they said that it's like, oh yeah, didn't even think about that. And so it's just been really a great space to connect with so many people and, connecting through different groups and things like that to meet with people like Rita. So it has been a really cool journey so far. And I'm excited to see where it continues to go.
So as you're describing your podcast, it just makes me think of how all of us should probably feel about our businesses as a whole, right? Like we talk about how sometimes we feel that imposter syndrome, but we just keep pushing through it. And then the more that we do it, the more comfortable we get and the more confident we get as we continue to walk in that journey. And then we start to realize that it helps us grow as a person and helps us become, who we are and who we're meant to be. And I love that. And it helps us to connect with and inspire and encourage more people along the way. I think that that's like part of our journey of starting our businesses and like moving forward in our businesses, no matter how long it takes us to get to where we're going. So speaking of our businesses, when did you start your business and how has it been with while you're raising daughters?
So it's been a journey, honestly. I mean, I remember like my first business being in 2014, I believe. I had a company that I thought of called Help Granted, a play on the last name of Grant, Help Granted Concierge. And it was where I was helping elderly women and pregnant women, even college students or thing. And the concept was basically on those days where you have no time to go do the typical errands and things like that. Like that was the space that I was going to occupy. And so I would go, in my mind, the setup was I would pick up groceries if I needed to. If you needed an oil change, I would go sit down, do the oil change for you. You need a ride to your doctor's appointment, I got you. So that was the premise for it. I had a few customers, but it wasn't really yielding the results that I wanted to see. And so I was like, okay, I think I need to shut it down and look for something different. So I did that. I took what I needed to learn in that season of just sitting and going through like a business plan and structuring that out. And so that was the lesson that I learned there. And then next was a company called Rain Fresh with t-shirts with using modern day language, but related to scripture. And I sold a good bit. And then again, like it just wasn't the specific thing that I needed to be doing. But it was helpful in the season that I was in. And it got me, the things that I learned in each of those, it got me to the space of owning my own private practice, which I started in 2022. And it has gone way over the time for the other two businesses. Those may have lasted 6 months to a year. And now I'm in 2024 with the business. And it has its ebbs and flow, of course, because during the summer months or during holidays and things like that, customers are like, oh, I want to save my money. I want to buy this. I want to go on vacation, all these things. Right. So just remembering that in the back of my head as I journey through it and just making sure I prioritize what money flow and all of that and staying organized looks like. And so that has been very helpful. And then as I'm doing that, just adding on other things and staying in the vein of, okay, God, what is next? What can I help to do to build legacy and generational wealth for my family and things like that? And so as I'm doing these things and learning systems and all of that, I invite my girls in just to see that process of like, okay, this system is called this. So I go here and I log in here and I take this here and I save this here and this produces this. Oh, you see how to edit? You pull it back just enough to get that there. So when I do that and I'm working on something and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so hard. I can't figure it. I have my 11-year-old like, oh, mommy, why don't you try, doing this or moving this? And we literally did that yesterday to get an edit like to end perfectly on one of the podcast episodes that I was doing. And when it did, we both looked at each other and screamed and clapped hands and all of that. So just to be able to have them in that space while I'm doing it, it is incredible. And I'm enjoying it with them.
I love it. Yeah. Summers are always more challenging, I think, especially when your kids are younger, because you have to kind of navigate what to do with them and how to figure out like how to work your business, but also spend the time that with them and do the activities that they want to do and have fun, and allow them to, just go and do, but also monitor them while working. It was just, I remember when my kids were younger, it was just such a juggle for, so yeah, I my kids are all teenagers now. So luckily I don't have that same struggle anymore, but I remember it vividly, how challenging it was. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The I'm bored and all of that stuff. So, tell us a little bit more about how you work with clients. Do you work with them like one-to-one, or do you have group programs, or what is that about?
So it just kind of depends. And I have my private practice, but then I also work for a company part-time as well, where I'm like a contracted things. I put in my own hours, and if someone wants to sign up for a slot, they can do that. And so within that, I also work with some of the companies that they have to do like workshops for group presentations as well. So I'm able to do that and kind of facilitate those types of things. And then as far as like my private practice, right now I do a lot of one-on-ones or sometimes couple counseling, depending on the type of referral it is and what they're looking for. So it just kind of depends on what the client may be looking for, but it's a lot more of one-on-ones, and I'm all virtual.
Love it. So, as I mentioned earlier, one of the things that I really want to focus on this year is figuring out how to help other moms like create more efficiency in their lives and businesses. So, what are you using right now, that a tool or app or anything that you want to recommend to everyone that they need to utilize in their life or their business?
So one thing for me has definitely been Google Calendar and being able to use the color coding. It is top tier for me because if you're like me, you're also wanting to make sure that you're budgeting the way you need to, but also getting what you need to make sure that you're producing how you need to as well too. So being able to utilize and know what I need to kind of use to navigate through different things. So if I'm recording different things, I'm using StreamYard because one of the actual persons that I had on for an interview, she gave me that idea because I'm like, Zoom is 40 minutes and I talk a lot sometimes and I go over and I don't want it to end. And she was like, girl, StreamYard, you get up to 5 hours, of just being able to record, and then you can download it. And so once you do that, you can delete it, get your, space back. So StreamYard is definitely one that I love to utilize. But then, like I said, utilizing Google, the Google Calendar, to be able to color code. So I can put in all of my, podcast interviewing times, and I'm able to share that stuff with my husband. So that way he's aware and he knows what's on the calendar. So if there's an event or somebody's asking, can we come to this or whatever the case is, he can easily look too. So we both having access to that is really helpful. And because I'm a mom and because I have all these things going through my head, I use my timer for like all the things so I can stay on track. If I know I told my daughters, okay, give me an hour to record and edit some of this stuff or whatever, I'm setting a timer so that way I'm intentional with what I'm doing. So that way it does not interrupt their flow either, because yeah, they do get bored too. Like it's summertime. They don't want to just sit and watch TV all day. If you're my kids, like they're very, very active. They want to play, or they want to go somewhere, they want to go outside, or they, mommy, can you play dolls? Mommy, wait, you know what I mean? So I am very intentional with just making sure that I have the time set up where I'm setting those timers, where I'm using my Google Calendar, where I'm using the things that I need for my podcast, or even for my sessions with clients. Google Meet has been a great space for meeting with clients as well too. So, I have those things, and as I learn, I add them to my little tool thing. And anybody that's like, well, Shanika, what are you using? Like, what do you use for this or whatever? I'm happy to help because someone helped me. And and one of my favorite is Canva. Canva, it's 10 out of 10. I recommend. So get you a Canva account. They have the free versions as well. I pay for pro so I can get the little extra stuff, but absolutely Canva has been top tier with just learning different ways to create all kinds of things. So I love it.
Yeah. So I was presenting at a local workshop last week, and we were talking about my business and then my podcast came up, and one of the audience members asked me, what do I use to record? And as you know, we're using Google Meet, and then I will download, and if I need to just crop or anything, I'll use Camtasia to crop it off. But and then I'll upload to Buzzsprout for like processing and all of that stuff. But when I said that I used to use Zoom to record, but one of the talks that I give all the time is about profit leaks and figuring out where businesses are leaking their profits. And oftentimes they're leaking their profits by paying for double the tools, right? And so the reason why I switched to using Google Meet instead of Zoom was because why am I paying for Google, all the Google suite, and then I'm paying again for Zoom when Google Meet does all of the same thing? And it's included in my Google Workspace. It transcribes, it downloads all of the meetings straight to my Google Drive for me. It does all of the things, and it saves me money, like no brainer. And like you, I have multiple calendars going in my Google Calendar, color coded so that I can see, especially for the podcast. I have one calendar specifically that shows whose episode is coming out on what day and what number episode it is. And if I need to make edits, like let's say that there was an incident in the middle of our episode that if I had to crop it out, like somebody's battery went dead last week and I need to cut out that space where her episode went dead. So I would just put in there in that parentheses, edit, and then I'll go back and make the edits to it. So I have that specific calendar, like for my podcast. And then I have different calendars for different things, all color coded, just like you. So again, I'm just saying, Google is the way. It does great work. Yes. Okay. So next, I want to talk about what are you listening to or reading besides your own book?
I'm listening to journaling. I'm
First, we love Faith Formations, and you can find it on Amazon.
Yes,
and the link of it is going to be in the description. But what else are we listening to right now or reading? Okay,
so it sounds cliche because I used to say this all the time. Like they were like, what's your favorite book? And when I was young and a teenager, oh, and it wasn't at the time, like, because I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so big and boring. Oh my gosh. But now literally it's in my room with me as I'm podcasting, so I can do quick references when I need to. But it's just applicable to every single thing that I'm going through. Like I can find scripture to back what I'm going through. So it has been one of the greatest things that I've just fell in love with again, and going from beginning to pick up on things that I'm like, oh my gosh, it's fire in here. Like I want to know what happens next. So it really has become something that, every day I'm making sure to get that in. But then more recently, my sister-in-law, she kind of started like this little book club reading type of thing, where Battle of the Mind by Joyce Meyer was one of the books that she introduced to us. And so been kind of on again, off again, reading through that too, and just knowing like literally the battlefield is literally the mind. We go through so much unnecessary stress and all of that just because we're in our mind. And so it's kind of a space where it's just like helping you get out of your mind, so much, and challenging those thoughts and things like that. So those two have kind of been where I'm at right now. As far as like listening to, right now it's a lot of Disney stuff because it's summer, but also that's what the kiddos want to hear, but also podcasts just relating to like coaching, counseling things. I even listen to other podcasts to kind of get tips on that too, and just kind of hearing the flow from different perspectives. And one it's called Boston Blessed Up. I love kind of listening to that one too. Business and all of that. Like it's just helpful. It just kind of goes into all the different things that I'm kind of walking through. So it's if you look at my Apple podcast library, it's a mix of all things. You're like, girl, yeah, right. I have it all.
I think it's good though to have a variety of different listening interests, right? Instead of just sticking to one thing. So that's great. Okay. So finally, and my favorite thing is to talk about self-care. And so Shanika, I mentioned to you before, like one of the reasons why I started this podcast was to really, because I was lacking in my own self-care just due to my personal issues that were going on in my life. And so I started this podcast because I needed to figure out like how were other moms doing what I felt like I was failing at, which was raising a family, running a business, but also taking care of themselves, like remembering themselves. So I'd love to know, what are you doing just for you?
Okay. Yeah. That's one of my favorite questions, because I always tell my clients, that's the thing. Like I make it mandatory. Like, okay, you're telling me all these things you're doing for all these other people. How are you pouring back into yourself?
Yes.
What are you doing for you? And so I have come to a place I think I've always kind of been like a self-care person, because I'm like, I gotta feel good. Like I don't like doing all these things for everybody, and not taking care of myself, which, don't get me wrong, I love helping people. I love doing what I'm, purpose to do, but I also like the me time too. And so now what I like to tell people is, self-care, it doesn't have to be related to getting your nails and your feet done all the time. It's whatever it is to bring back the rejuvenation and, just being energized on your own. And so for me, it looks different depending on where I'm at. Like if it's a lot of work stuff and podcast heavy stuff or whatever that is, then sometimes my self-care is literally snuggling up on the couch with my husband, and we binge watch little shows on TV, and I feel good because we're not having to talk about anything specifically. Sometimes we're literally just laying there. I'm on him or I'm on the other couch and we're watching TV. That's self-care for me at times. Sometimes it's on a Friday after work and everybody's just gotten through the week. We do dance parties with the girls. Like we're literally listening to some Disney music or some Hannah Montana, Party in the USA or something like that, just to get us moving. So sometimes that's what my self-care looks like. Yeah. And then sometimes I'm like, I just want to sit on my bed, go upstairs, sit on the bed, wiggle my toes and watch something on TV or just scroll social media or whatever the case is. Or it's setting candles in the bathroom and I'm laying in the tub and I have my little relaxing music and my husband will come in and check on me. You need anything? You need something to drink? No, I'm good. But they know if it's that time, they respect it enough. And because I tell all of them as well, like, we're going to respect boundaries and we're going to make sure that we all get what we need. And so they all know it. Like, we're going to take the time and just be alone or whatever the case is.
Right.
Yeah. So it just kind of looks different depending on what's happening around me or what I feel like I need, to get through whatever week or whatever day I've had.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned that it's not necessarily, getting your pedicures and all of those things. I like to just always remind people that it's great to get your hair done and your nails done and all of those things. Those are great aspects of self-care, but self-care can be as simple as having 5 minutes alone in the bathroom by yourself.
Exactly.
Right? Like, it can be sitting in the car with yourself for that extra few minutes just to recenter and just to realign. It could be like journaling, could be meditating, could be praying, it could be whatever. Just anything that's going to help you to reconnect, especially because we live in a world that is somewhat disconnected, right? It can be so much disconnection. So even though we're all connected, we're disconnected from each other.
Exactly. I hear you.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So where are you hanging out online? Like, what is your favorite platform? Where are you? What are you doing?
Oh man, I think Instagram has been where I'm able to get those crazy little sounds and kind of make things pop and get people to check me out and things like that. So Instagram, I definitely would say would probably be like my number one. And then Facebook, because it's a lot of family that I'm able to connect with that don't necessarily get on all the other social media platforms. So that's kind of where I'm able to connect with family and do things like that. And then TikTok is just a good mix of all of it. So I would definitely say those three. And then YouTube, because my podcast will connect to that as well. So those 4 platforms are where you can find me. I don't know if you want me to do my handles or if you want to add those. Like,
you can say them if you'd like. And then of course they'll be in the show notes as well.
Okay. Well, my personal Shanika, just me being me, and seeing some of my family date nights and things that my children do at The Real Shanika G. And then my podcast would be at Insecure Faith Meets Joy, the letter N, and then Freedom. It wouldn't let me do the N. It was too long with all of that in there. So Insecure Faith Meets Joy in Freedom is where you'll find me on Instagram. And they are the same on TikTok as well. And then Facebook would just be Shanika B. Grant or Insecure Faith Meets Joy in Freedom.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. And then the book everybody can find on Amazon, and it's under Faith Formations there, and they can purchase it.
Yes.
Easily.
Yes, they can purchase it on Amazon, Journaling with Faith Formations. I also have a website. It's that squared site thing, but it's long, but it includes a free little kind of coupled with the journal that you'll be able to utilize as well if you buy it off of that site. I don't like to give it away. It's a freebie, but it's really cool. It couples the journal really well.
Love it. Okay. And the link for that will be in the show notes as well. So thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure getting to know you. And thank you so much for being a guest.
Absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity. I really do appreciate it.
And there you have it. I want to encourage you to remember that being a mom who runs her own business is not easy. We all struggle, but just keep moving forward and don't forget to make time for yourself. As moms, we are usually the first thing to go to the bottom of the list. If your business is overwhelming you and you need real solutions, not just some sugar-coated suggestions, apply to work with me at ritasuzanne.com/apply.